the ground shake.
What's going on, guys? My name is Renegade. Today we're here for the first episode of Class Comparisons. I am sort of displaying this series, if you will, as a versus series. So this episode is going to be Shaman versus BLAZEBINDER for farming. I'm going to be taking a look at both those classes, explaining the strengths and weaknesses of each class in the farming category, and I'll be telling you guys which is better for farming. So before we get into the video, if you guys leave a like and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, that'd be awesome. And also remember to follow me on Twitter. My Twitter link is always in the description down below. I always just post updates and such to do with my videos. I also use a hashtag AQW news, where I will retweet and post like replies and stuff to interesting pieces of news. So if you're interested in AQW news and interested in keeping up with all the latest AQW related news, then by all means follow me on Twitter. So yeah, this is the first episode of Class Comparisons. So I'm going to make it a tradition that before we get into the video, we need to explain to you guys why a farming class is a good farming class, like what makes a good farming class. So I'll do this as quick as I possibly can. A good farming class needs to be a class that can kill monsters quickly. So the monsters killed per minute is usually a good way to think about it. I'm not necessarily going to explain to you, oh, this class will kill 3 monsters per minute or 80 monsters per minute or whatever. I'm going to just say this class will kill more monsters per minute than this class, for example. Because you can't necessarily be sure of how many monsters per minute a class is going to kill. It depends on what the monsters are, it depends on what... It depends on a lot of things. So the monsters killed per minute is a really good way of looking at it. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to have an AoE attack though. An AoE attack definitely helps because you can attack multiple monsters at once, but not necessarily the best way to look at it. For example, Alpha Omega has an ability where you can almost one hit a lot of monsters. Like you'll hit like 3k guaranteed. It has a guaranteed crit move, so you can use that move and you can actually like one hit a lot of monsters. So it might be good for that. But Alpha Omega doesn't have any AoE moves, but it's still a decent enough farming class. So yeah, a good farming class also needs to keep itself alive. It needs to keep itself healthy. So you might need to attack 300 monsters. Say for a quest you need to kill 300 of one monster, just for example. You need to keep yourself alive during that time so you can kill the monsters faster. This also ties in with the previous thing I mentioned, but basically you need to keep yourself alive and healthy while killing the monsters. That's pretty much it for what makes a good farming class. Let's get into the comparison. Okay, so BLAZEBINDER is a really strong farming class, as you might know. So we'll talk about its strengths and its weaknesses right now. So its strengths consist of basically all of its attacks are AoE. It has 3 attacking abilities and 1 healing ability. The 3 attacking abilities are, the first ability is just a normal attack move. It can't miss. All of the moves can't miss. They are guaranteed to hit. That's my point here. The first move, though, is a short cooldown move, so that means you can basically spam it, and it deals a decent amount of damage. It's around 400, so it's decent-ish, especially considering that it hits 3 enemies at once, so it's pretty good. Its second ability, which is it's more of a passive ability. It's still a damaging ability. It applies a DOT. It's a pretty strong DOT. It's about 200 to 300, sort of around that area. And that can be buffed as well with the last move. And the last move is more of a nuke move. It applies effects that buff DOTs. Somewhere in the mix there, one of the abilities applies a debuff to the enemies as well. Sorry, that was my phone going off there. But the last ability, it's more of a nuke because it can hit 3 enemies as well, along with all the other moves as well in the class. All the attacking abilities basically hit 3 enemies. I think that's the limitation there. It doesn't hit any more than 3. But the last move is more of a nuke move because it hits about 1 to 1.5k, but it can't crit. But it's a fairly large amount of damage when you consider that it can't miss. So, and that applies, as I said, effects, and it also, every ability in the class applies DOTs, except the heal ability. So the last ability applies a small DOT, the first ability also applies a small DOT, the second ability applies a large DOT, as I said, and then again, last ability also buffs the DOT. So it's a pretty strong amount of damage being dealt there. It also has a pretty strong heal. Now the class says that it has a 16-second cooldown with a 6-second heal, but this is completely false. That by the 6-second heal, I mean 6-second HOT. What actually happens is you apply the HOT. I haven't actually timed it for myself, but by the time you're ready to apply the move again, like after the cooldown has finished, that's when the heal stops. The heal doesn't stop after 6 seconds, and with a 16-second cooldown. If the ability truly does have a 16-second cooldown, I haven't timed it, then the HOT is also 16 seconds. Like, mate, it's completely wrong. It's supposed to be 10 seconds without any healing, but it's obviously not. If you keep spamming the HOT move, you're gonna have a consistent heal over time, constantly. Just whatever, no matter what you do, you'll just, as long as you keep applying it, you'll have a consistent HOT. So that's the thing. So it becomes very, very hard to pick out weaknesses. But one weakness is if you keep applying all the abilities at once and you're trying to keep all the effects going and everything, you'll actually run into some mana issues. The class does have some mana problems, but the mana is actually very easy to balance. You just need to not apply everything as fast as you think you would. So perhaps don't spam the first move as much as you'd like to. Don't use the last ability as much as you'd like to. Just keep it, keep it on the down low. Even if you keep it on the down low, you're still dealing a lot of damage. You do have a lot of damage per minute, as some might call it. And overall, I think BLAZEBINDER is a really great class. We'll now talk about Shaman's strengths and weaknesses, then we'll compare them. So when it comes to Shaman, we have some strengths and some weaknesses again, like with BLAZEBINDER. The strengths of Shaman is we have 2 quite effective AoE attacks, and by that, I mean the first 2 abilities. The first ability has a 4-second cooldown, and the second ability also has a 4-second cooldown. They both have a small-ish amount of mana that they consume, about 10 and 15. I think that's how much that is, I don't know off the top of my head though. And when you apply them, if you apply the first ability and then the second ability will heal you for a portion of the damage dealt. It usually will heal you about 200. It's roughly around 200. Although it can be a bit lower and a bit higher, it just depends on how much damage you actually deal. But yeah, it's not a very effective heal, and the AoE attacks are questionable. They are not guaranteed to hit, I believe, although don't quote me on that. I don't know if they actually are. I've yet to see them miss. Actually, there we go. I'm using the class right now and it just dodged. There we go. They do miss. Okay. So they do miss, and they don't always crit. But when they do crit, mainly the second ability, when the second ability crits, it deals about 2.5k damage. I'm using an unstable weapon, by the way. I would recommend you use an unstable weapon with this class. There's really no need not to. And so the second ability is really, really strong if it crits, but when it doesn't crit, it hits about 900. So it's about as effective as the last ability on BLAZEBINDER. BLAZEBINDER's ability is actually probably more effective. In fact, I'll use the ability right now, and we'll take a look at how much damage it will deal. It deals around 1k, just above 1k. So as I said, just above 1k. So BLAZEBINDER does have a slight edge there, although the ability on BLAZEBINDER has a 12-second cooldown, whereas the ability on Shaman has a 4-second cooldown. So Shaman does have the edge with cooldowns, but again, BLAZEBINDER's ability never misses, and it's guaranteed to do the damage that is advertised. So it's almost as if it's like 100% guaranteed to do 1.1k damage or whatever it is. So we're not talking about BLAZEBINDER, we're talking about Shaman though. Shaman is extremely easy to use, however. The first 2 abilities, you just need to spam them repeatedly. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, repeatedly like that, and you'll deal the right amount of damage, and you'll heal, you'll damage, and you'll regain mana. If you start to use the last 2 abilities, however, you'll run into massive mana issues. The third ability consumes 40 mana, the fourth ability consumes 60 mana. So, with that said, if you actually need the 6th ability applied to do a lot of damage with the 4th ability. So you apply 6th ability, that's 60 mana, gone. 4th ability, that's another 40 mana, gone. And you might know, you only have 100 mana total. So you apply the last 2 abilities and you've consumed literally all your mana. And you will regain some of that back, of course, if you crit. And it is not that hard to regain it back. But again, if you really badly need to heal and you apply those abilities, you're stuffed. You're literally dead. And so that's a really big thing to consider. The cooldowns on those last 2 moves are really big as well, and so if you want to use those consistently, 1, you need a lot of mana regained, and 2, you need short cooldowns, and neither of those things happen. And the heal on the class overall is also far too weak. So, yeah, Shaman does run into some pretty massive issues, whereas BLAZEBINDER just is more consistent. So we'll go into the final conclusions now about these 2 classes compared. Alright, so Shaman and BLAZEBINDER are both very excellent farming classes. You can't go wrong with either of them. They're both very good. As I said, Shaman, you just need to spam the 2 first moves and you'll deal the right amount of damage and you'll consistently farm pretty well. But BLAZEBINDER just is a stronger farming class overall, and this is why. Your DOTs amount for a fairly large amount of damage dealt. You can actually get the DOTs to be dealing around 300 damage on the strong DOT. And as well as that second ability being a DOT ability, it also applies some debuffs to the enemy. and it actually makes them deal less damage to you. So not only do you have a stronger heal on BLAZEBINDER, their BLAZEBINDER heal is around sort of 250 to 300, even higher than that if you have the right enhancements. You really are like, it says, they still haven't fixed this with this class, by the way. It says it only lasts 6 seconds, but it really does last 16 seconds. Like, this is a really big thing to consider. It says it lasts 16 seconds, but it actually lasts the full entire, duration, like, before you can, before you need to reapply the heal. Like, what I mean by that is, you apply the heal, it says it only lasts 6 seconds, but it lasts the entire time, and then by the time you're ready to reapply it, you can apply it again, and then the heal just is a consistent heal. It's a constant heal over time if you keep applying that ability. I'm doing it now, and the cooldown, it's either the cooldown or the HOT time. I haven't timed this yet, but it's either the cooldown or the time advertised for the HOT. They're both wrong, or one of them is wrong, because like it lasts the entire time. Now, as I said, BLAZEBINDER is very consistent. Every ability that you use is guaranteed to actually hit. The abilities you cannot miss. None of the abilities can miss. And so as a result, BLAZEBINDER is far more consistent than Shaman. Shaman's abilities can miss. They sometimes don't crit when you really need them to. The heal is really weak on Shaman. It's just a kind of a shit show if you're thinking about it in comparison. Shaman really has some consistency issues, and really does run into mana issues. They both run into mana issues, especially if you're trying to keep that heal applied on BLAZEBINDER, but honestly, BLAZEBINDER is a much better farming class. And I would like to explain this a lot more, but I'd rather keep this video a bit shorter. I'm sure you guys can see my point of view on this. BLAZEBINDER is a superior farming class. So, I really did enjoy making this video, guys. It was really fun for me to make. I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did. If you did, then let me know. Leave a comment. Tell me what I did wrong. Tell me what I did right. If you like the overlay I've made, I haven't actually started making it yet, but hopefully it's going to look good. Then leave a comment on that. What do you want to improve with it and everything. Leave some feedback on how I talked, what I talked about. If I need to go over other things in the class, maybe you want me to talk about the enhancements or something. Although I do have a class guide on both these classes, so you can have a look at that if you want to see like the actual in-depth analysis of the class. But yeah, guys, if you did enjoy the video, leave a like, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, follow me on Twitter to be updated with any news and stuff like that, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.